the pitch that you had was that we are somehow straw manning the ANCAP position. Yet you come in
And
and
I
basically,
think we covered that. We kind
well,
of
no, but
moved on to a
you come
tangent.
in and basically, I mean, you're articulating the same position that we have a problem with. The ANCAP position seems to be we have to find a way to get rid of the government. I have the same moral intuitions as you as about having to get permits to do anything. I hate government. I hate all the hoops that you have to jump through. But I
I
am
know that
not. But
we
my
know that
elephant is.
permits are
But
not
my
good.
elephant isn't rampaging every time I have to pay my taxes because I have studied enough to know that the alternatives are terrible. What are we talking about, Mecca? Can you introduce yourself and tell us what the topic is?
Yeah, sure. Uh, well, I'm here to talk to you guys about pretty much anarchist capitalist philosophy
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and the aims of people like voluntarists, minarchists, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you guys misrepresent it quite a bit, and it bothers me a bit. And I'm a big fan of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. When did we? Because I honestly don't remember when last we talked about this.
Just whenever you talk about political representation or the role of the state or the function of the state, or just in general, whenever you say, "Oh, well, it's just going to collapse society."
I see. Whenever I
It's-
shit on anarchism, basically, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, are we
Okay, so
misrepresenting
change
what
my
the
mind.
are we
Inform me.
misrepresenting what the anarcho-capitalists want? I feel like I've said before, this is when I say certain things, I feel like the anarcho-capitalists are cringing at what I'm saying because they're like, "No, state intervention is always bad. The natural order, that kind of thing."
Well, the issue with state intervention is where it intervenes with property rights and natural rights.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's why there's a big overlap between ANCAPs and minarchists, where they flow back and forth every 6 months or so, because there's always issues that come up in the philosophy when it comes to anarchism, and there's issues in the philosophy when it comes up to minarchism, where
What is menarchism?
Minimal government.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, for instance, your congressman, or I'm Canadian, so we have members of parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that necessarily tied to where we're living in the country?
As opposed to,
Well, that's like, why can't I hire someone to represent me in the government who has divergent views from all of my neighbors?
so the plan would be everyone has to individually hire someone and represent them in government? I don't.
Yeah, because if the person who represents you in government is someone that you can't fire, you can't hire at will, and has vastly different views than you, then they don't really represent you.
You can. Well, I mean, voting is the conceptualization of firing them. Like, you personally can't fire them, if that's what you mean.
But voting is not whenever you want. Voting
Sure.
is on a set timetable,
Right.
and I'm a minority.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a minority in any area I live in.
Right.
So is everyone who thinks like me. So there might be like 10% of us in the country, but we're spread out over the entire goddamn country.
Mm-hmm. I see. People that have your anarchical views is what you're saying, or minority.
Yeah. So we
Right.
have no representation in government.
Right. Well, but so would this? I mean, you couldn't have a system where every individual person hires someone, because there has to be some set limit of people that can exist in government. Otherwise, you're gonna have.
But actually, that's something that has happened. The Icelandic Commonwealth from the 10th century. That's how that government functioned.
That
And
sounds
we can
crazy,
say
though.
And we can say it was a successful government because it lasted for 360 years.
How many people were in the government?
Here, let me check this. It wasn't very populous.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's not, it's the population of the. I mean, maybe in Canada when you have 10 people, like in a moose, it'll work. But I don't know.
You just have to think about it in terms of scale. It's not
Uh-huh.
It's not ridiculous to scale that up, just like it's not ridiculous to scale up like an insurance company or something.
Well, no, but like the entire point of having elected officials is that the average person doesn't have the energy, time, or even knowledge to make decisions about these things. So they're trusting someone else to basically do
Yeah.
it for them.
The average
Right.
person doesn't have time, knowledge, or skills to run an insurance company.
That's
They don't
Can
have
we-
time, knowledge,
yes.
skills for all these things. You
Right.
hire an expert.
Yeah, but you
So-
there's not in a different
It's like hiring a lawyer.
I understand that, but there's not one lawyer for every single human that exists in the country, right?
And it doesn't have to be one for every single person.
Okay, well that's what
You
I
all
well, that
hire
was
the
the
same
first that
guy.
was the question
If
I
you
had.
want this, if you all want the same guy, you all hire the same guy.
I see. But there has to be the problem is there have to be some numerical limit on that, right?
I don't
And
see why.
so what do you mean? You're saying I don't see what because there what do you mean? Because otherwise you have a situation where everyone wants to hire a different person.
So
Well, then you can't have a government. If your government is going to be
I don't see
comprised
how
of
that's a problem.
300 million people, that's not very efficient.
I don't see how that's a problem, to be honest. You can't have a federal government. Great.
Okay, but that's but that's just because you just want to not have a federal government, though. If you do want to have a federal government, you can't have 300 million people be part of the federal government because nothing will get done.
But it won't be 300 million people. It'll be people hiring people in order to represent them.
Can you explain anarcho-capitalism to us just so we don't get accused of straw manning anymore? Because I mean, I feel like when I describe it, I am describing what you're saying, but yet people constantly say, no, that's not anarcho-capitalism.
Okay, well,
I
Pretty
usually
much-
describe anarcho-capitalism as like some completely unfeasible form of government where everything is privatized. And it sounds like that's basically what you're describing.
it's impossible for what I'm saying to be unfeasible because I'm literally describing a government that existed.
Well,
So it
that
was
existed in a different
a
country,
tiny
a different
scale,
era,
yeah.
smaller scale.
Sure, but you can say the same thing about the founding fathers of America when they started the American Republic. It's
Mhm.
a completely different country that they were basing it on, completely different scale.
Right.
There are forces though that prevent certain things from scaling up larger than a certain size. There are certain constraints that the environment puts on things. Like for instance, insects can't get over a certain size because the oxygen in the atmosphere is not big enough for an
Absolutely, but-
exoskeleton.
And that's why the Icelandic Commonwealth eventually collapsed. But
Right,
it was
so-
after
Perfect.
that was after
You're making our
360
argument
years.
now.
The average
Okay.
That's after 360 years. 340 years is the average length of
Yes, but
age
the
for
number of
civilization.
people, the number of people is the issue though.
well, it wasn't the number of people that was the issue for the Icelandic Commonwealth.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was the fact that they were living in fucking Iceland.
Okay.
So just agriculturally, it couldn't sustain itself.
Right. I don't think this is a good example. And I mean, also because what happened, like, so basically, wouldn't this just lock out people who couldn't afford to hire someone to represent them?
Okay, so
On top of
now
it?
we're entering what
I
is what
Mhm.
quite frequently arguments about criticizing anarcho-capitalism are descriptions of the status quo. So that is actually describing the current political system as well. And we don't want a utopia. We don't believe in utopia.
Mm-hmm.
We want something that is better. And any criticism that is descriptive of the status quo is not like that's not a real criticism because our current system is like that.
Yeah, but to try to understand what you're saying it's not fair to say people couldn't afford to hire representation because that exists under our current system, and under your system, everyone would be able to afford it. Is what you're saying?
No, I'm
right?
not saying
No?
everyone would be able to afford representation. I'm saying people are not represented now because they can't afford it, and it's way worse. It's
Well, that's
quite
not true, 'cause
literally
it's
an
by
oligarchy.
location. You don't have to pay for your representation.
Yes, you do.
How so?
What do you think lobbying is?
That's not paying for representation.
Yes, it is.
No.
That's paying for
Yeah.
extra representation.
Yeah, well, paying for extra representation is
Mhm.
also paying for representation.
Okay, so
It's just more so.
okay, so just be against lobbying.
Being against lobbying is an absurd position. Being against lobbying just strengthens the power structure that presently exists. It prevents outside forces from coming in and influencing the political system.
So you just want to increase lobbying to
Sure.
everyone on a more personal level.
Yes,
Okay.
where people's rights are protected.
Well, but no, because you're just going to have a situation where all the rich people hire the best lobbyists for them. It's gonna, I mean, because you're basically saying, I want the system we have now, but worse.
I don't see it as worse.
Yeah, because at least now it's like, okay, yeah, rich people and corporations, they can hire lobbyists to, have their interests and all that stuff. But the lobbyists still have to convince. The lobbyists are not the ones who
They're not really convinced.
the lobbyists are not the
Iowa.
ones
It's
who
not
are,
really
who are
convincing.
writing or voting on the legislation. They have to convince the elected representative who's elected by the location and the people to do, X.
We know in the present system, the elected representatives aren't reading the bills that are being written for them by think tanks and all these other private interests.
Mhm.
We already know that. So it's not a matter of convincing in the current system. It's pure payola.
Well, I don't agree with that either. I mean, it's like you look at a lot of people who are against or who are in favor of or against the CRT bills. And yeah, obviously they haven't read a lot of it, but they have some general, or they think they have some general sense of it. And it's based on really more not on getting paid. It's based on what they think is going to get them elected, because they are like, because that's, I mean, I don't buy this whole, oh, people just get paid off thing. Like you couldn't have a lobbyist group go to DeSantis, right, and pay him some amount of money to suddenly turn against the anti-CRT bills.
I'm not sure about that.
You
I don't know.
think that someone could pay DeSantis enough money to get him to come out in favor of CRT?
I don't have confidence in any elected official. So I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, but I don't know. To me, I think that's crazy.
No.
I
Because
agree.
I don't
I
know, man.
concur.
This is, I think, where the difference here is that yes, there is lobbying and yes, there's money in the system, but at the end of the day, the politicians still have to do what they think their electorate wants. DeSantis is against CRT because he thinks his electorate is in favor of him being against CRT.
In that instance, yes, but just in general, the political class doesn't frequently care what the electorate wants, such as immigration has been a big issue for the political right for a long time. It's unpopular generally, yet nothing happens about it.
Yeah, but why do you think that is?
Because the political class aren't in favor of it, because the business interests want greater amounts of immigration, because our social security systems are kind of reliant on immigration because of low birth rates. All these political structures and financial structures are in place that require a constantly growing population, because it's a Ponzi scheme, really.
Right. But that's the issue. So you have a bunch of politicians who are going to say they're going to talk tough on immigration, and then they're not going to actually do anything for all the reasons you laid out. And that's because they're afraid if they did the things that their voters think they want to have happen, it would actually end up causing all sorts of harm to our country, and then they would get voted out of office.
But then you don't really have political representation.
That is the point.
It's just
yeah.
No, it's an elite that says, no, we know better than you do. But part of the entire idea of a market system is that the collective market knows more than any individual from the market.
Okay, but I don't think you can compare quote unquote market decisions, which are individual groups or entities making all sorts of decisions. That doesn't really compare to the way the government works, where
I don't see why
people
that
are
would be
voting
different.
on specific things. I don't think that's comparable.
Democracy is a bit of
comparable.
a market, though. I mean, there is some overlap.
No, but
the main
in a
main
market,
comparison in a lot of political theory is viewing democracy as a market, viewing votes as equivalent to money, because it's all about the control over industries, the distribution of resources, and how things are to flow. Who is going to be part of the elite in whatever system? as determined by collective decision making through
No,
either
I
voting or through purchasing.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is like, so I don't believe in having, communist controlled economies because I don't think an individual person or entity can figure out all the decisions, reliant that would make a market function. And part of the intelligence behind having our kind of market driven system is that there isn't a person making a decision. You have all these different individual companies and organizations and customers and buyers, and they're all making independent decisions. And then the quote unquote market is just which is just this collection of different entities, are all just reacting on individual levels to individual decisions that individual people are making. Our government does not work like that at all. Our government has a bunch of individual people vote for representation, and then those people
That's why
get
the
together in a
government is
room and they
bad.
try to hash out an agreement about something.
But that's why we don't like the government.
I understand.
Don't
So you
like that.
want it to function like a market.
Yes,
Okay, but it doesn't function currently like a market.
correct.
Okay.
Is that what ANCAPs want politically?
Well, we want our rights protected, and we want property rights to be absolute. And a lot of us are.
I mean, property rights are pretty absolute, other than eminent domain,
Oh,
which is
no, we
very
don't
much
want
an
tax.
exception.
We don't want taxes. We don't want copyright. We don't want
No copyright. Isn't
No
copyright
copyright.
property rights though?
copyright. Right, property rights as a function are to deal with problems of economics, which is dealing with scarcity. So if something has a limited quantity, it takes on an economic quality, whereas ideas are unlimited.
Good ideas
So
are
they-
not unlimited.
Good ideas are unlimited as well because they can be copied at no cost.
But
I'd
how
say-
are you going to
I'd say
incentivize
good idea.
anyone
Yeah, go
to
ahead.
Uh,
create anything if they can't copyright what they do?
Well, this is part of why there's the paleo libertarian sort of thought process that comes from Rothbard and goes into Hans Hermann Hoppe, as well as a lot of people who are on YouTube now. It's that society is moving way too fast for us to really keep up with. And our cultures are kind of decaying because we can't really communicate ideas and create this culture that that has existed for thousands of years. So
Wait, what? Wait, say that again.
So whenever in ancient times, whenever people came up with ideas or stories or something, they get told by the next person to another person
Right.
over and over and over again.
Right.
We get these mythic epic narratives out of it. We can't really do that nowadays because all of our mythic epic sort of characters and this spreading of ideas are being controlled by mostly Disney. So
It's the opposite, though. I don't know what you mean.
I don't.
We
What do you
live in a time where more individual people can tell their own story and their own opinion than has ever existed in all of human existence.
That's true, but for the most part, it's despite copyright, not because of.
Well, they're incentivized by copyright, though.
Yeah, like me and Adam wouldn't be streaming if someone could just rip all our shit and profit off of it and we made no money.
I don't necessarily believe that because I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't. We would stop immediately.
Well, you guys can't wouldn't be incentivized by other payment models. You wouldn't be incentivized by just
Well, I mean-
generally doing it because
Well,
you guys are.
Advertising
I
is
mean,
a big
like, you guys
portion of it, though. I mean,
I look at like a big problem with
Don't you guys
a lot
enjoy
of
it?
YouTube content, especially animation, is the YouTube model, is that it's not feasible for someone to work, months and months. And this is a big problem with my edited videos. It's just not feasible to spend, weeks or months on a video that makes a very little money as opposed to just being able to churn out the content on a faster pace. So, I mean, that definitely changes my incentives and the way I look at the world.
sure.
It's just, I assume it does with everyone.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
more of a
we're
problem.
we're definitely going to copyright the. I mean, the comic is copyrighted, obviously.
Fair enough.
Right.
If people could just could copy it themselves, I mean, we wouldn't do it. Of course not. We wouldn't even imagine doing it.
when it comes to things like YouTube, we're a few layers deep in state control already because all this has been funded by the government in huge amounts. All this is controlled by the government in some way or another.
So your
Right.
big gripe though is with government, right? You
Well,
think
but wait,
government
wait.
is
Before we move on, because you said that the culture is decaying because it can't keep up, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's the
We're-
argument.
we're all kind of we're losing base with each other.
Mhm.
This is kind of why Sitch's law even exists, right? Because we're losing this common syntax with each other, and the conditions of the world that we live in are changing more rapidly than people can really keep up and stay sane. It's this part of Ted Kaczynski's argument of industrial progress.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that there's some truth to the fact that things are changing so quickly, and that's where a lot of the conflict comes from. But it just seems to me that it's backwards because part of the way that things are changing so quickly is that everyone has a voice, is that there's no discern about what is fake and what is real because there's so many voices and people are just confronted with having almost an unlimited choice of information or entertainment to draw from. And it seems like it's almost like it seems the argument seems kind of
unlimited, but there's
contradictory because it's saying like, oh, our culture was better when people could not communicate their ideas effectively. So basically everything had to be filtered through an elite class, right? Because that's how old information had to be filtered through. It had to be filtered
things
through
are
the
still
elites.
filtered through an elite class. Like,
Yeah, but less now
really
than it's
big
ever
time.
been in human history.
that's true.
But that's what I don't understand because it feels like that this sort of ANCAP argument that you're making in terms of government is I want to make government run like YouTube, where every single person
no, not
has
like
a
YouTube.
voice.
Not like YouTube.
Well, I mean, a theoretical YouTube that doesn't have, the algorithm punishing people, right?
Yeah.
It's just every person has a voice, which to me, that's going to create the exact problem that you're talking about is happening right now, where just there's too many voices, everyone's talking, it's not being filtered through anything.
Well, there is a filter. It's market forces are a filter.
Yeah, but that's the filter we're in right now.
No, it's not. There's
You don't think so?
no. People get boosted
Mm-hmm,
based on other things, and people get suppressed based on other
Yeah,
things.
but
We have an elite that guides our society for the most part.
yeah, but the boosting on YouTube, the biggest boosting on YouTube.
And it's not even just YouTube, it's society in general.
I understand, but I'm just using YouTube as an example.
Okay.
The boosting on YouTube is entirely the consequence of market forces. It's entirely the consequence of the media attacking YouTube, hurting their ability to get ads via market forces. And so they capitulate to them and saying, okay, we're going to algorithmically boost all the mainstream media sources to the top so you guys stop, attacking us and attacking our financial gains.
This is true, but the society that people like me want
Mhm.
is so divorced from this that it's not even really applicable anymore. Because YouTube and Google as an extension are privatized parts of the NSA. It's all part of the intelligence agencies. All these things, and the news media is controlled as well. Are you familiar with the cathedral? I'm pretty sure you should be.
You mean with with Mencius Moldbug's Cathedral?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all the same to us.
Well,
So when you talk about the news media, it just reads to me the state. If you say YouTube, it's the state. All these things are part of the state. Even Apple is the state.
how does that work?
Megacorps are part of the state.
How does it? Well, first, I mean, I do not agree with that conceptualization. But if we focus on one thing, like, I mean, what wasn't it Apple that told the CIA to fuck off in terms of giving them the ability to use that the encryption key and everything? Or was that
Yes,
Google? I
but
don't know. One of them
that's
did.
It was
what's
Apple.
publicly reported. I don't believe these people.
Oh, okay, okay. So, but my question is, how? Well, I mean, because we get in these situations where the media reporting is very often counter to what the current government wants. I mean, we had 4 years of the Trump administration basically going to war with the media.
The Trump administration is an aberration on the political landscape. Trump was an outsider to the state apparatus, or at least was made to look like an outsider to the state apparatus. I believe that he is genuinely outsider, but I don't know. There's a lot of arguments that he's just a way of like a pressure release.
Mm-hmm. I
So,
see. Mm-hmm.
Trump in office pretty much had no one on his side, and that's why he was firing people all the time, and that's why he partially didn't really accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire election of him is very bizarre, but it just I don't know. I don't know, man. It's just
Okay, so if we don't use Trump, I mean, I think Obama's a good example. The media, Obama was like their darling when he was running. They all loved him, and then they started tearing him down as soon as his poll numbers went down. They started piling on, attacking him. Right now we even had, was it the Washington Post or the New York Times confirmed the Hunter Biden laptop, which would seemingly be against what the government will want.
But there's going to be no consequences of it.
Yeah, but why would they even? If it's just if you're saying that
it's just
the
narrative.
U.S. But I'm saying if you're saying the U.S. media is the equivalent of Russian state media, which is the argument that you're making, why would they go through? Why would they be reporting these stories that are so negative to so many political candidates, especially ones that are in power?
Because there's things that can't be ignored that have to be reported, or else.
Why?
Or else people will just be disenchanted by the state media. They'll not trust it anymore.
I mean, no one trusts it anymore anyway. I don't know how people can be more disenchanted.
So many people trust it. You wouldn't even believe, man.
Yeah, they trust their team's version of it.
Yeah, but it's all the same.
But it's not, because if Fox News had been complaining about Hunter Biden's laptop since day one, and the left media was telling them that the laptop's fake news. And so people just accept that narrative, and they would continue to accept that forever until the left-wing news silo then says, actually, no, the laptop is real.
I don't know what to tell you. Often a lot of these things come up as distraction to something else. A lot of these things are just ways of they're part of the levers that control society. I don't know what else to say about that.
It's hard for me to, now maybe this is my own naivete. Maybe it's just I'm just an idiot. It's hard for me.
I don't think you're an idiot. I'm not going to.
No, I'm not saying that you think I'm an idiot. I just mean
idiots.
Careful.
What I mean
Let's
is
not go
like
too crazy here.
It's hard for me to conceptualize that there's some giant big brain people here that are like 10D chessing the entire fucking planet, or at least the entire country of America, in a super convoluted way.
I don't think it's 10D chess, and I don't think it's super convoluted. It's
It is convoluted. You can't say that.
It's not that convoluted. It's waving keys in front of a baby.
What do you mean?
Which we know how much Adam likes, but
well, no, I'm just saying. I'm listening to the conversation here. The pitch that you had was that we are somehow straw manning the ANCAP position. Yet you come in and basically.
I think we covered that. We kind
well,
of
no, but you come in and basically. I mean, you're articulating the same position that we have a problem with. The ANCAP position seems to be we have to find a way to get rid of the government. So they go looking for whatever systems they think that will help them in this quest to destroy all government, all taxes, all things. And they really don't have any concept of how the government works, or what they're destroying, or how human psychology works, how behavior works. No, I feel
I read all these
honestly,
books that you have, Adam.
Well,
I've read all these books and more.
well, what's
and
going
more, yes.
what's going on here? I feel like the argument you're making can be boiled down to, with all respect, I feel like it can be boiled down to government bad.
Well, let's back
That's
up.
it.
Yes.
Do we ever?
I'm
do we ever?
gonna Chad. Yes, government bad.
Okay,
Thank you.
so but government, so that's
But
some progress. But government is a necessary evil. Like I look at government, like you look at the free market as the thing of beauty, right? I don't believe a free
No,
market can exist
I don't
without
think of it as
government.
beauty. I don't think it is. I don't think of it as beautiful.
Okay, so give us your take on you obviously, I mean, we're in a situation where it's a little contentious, so obviously
The free
you're
market is
predisposed to disagree with me. What is the free market better than the government? I don't want to straw man your position.
It is preferable.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
preferable to the government. Okay, so obviously some hyperbole. I'm saying a thing of beauty, but the government is lesser. The market is good. Now, in my estimation, you can't have a free market, which I'm a free market person. I believe in free markets, but the essential part of markets is security. And you can't have a free market without security, and you can't have security without a government.
I don't believe the state provides security.
Right. You believe they've been corrupted, essentially.
I don't even believe it's been corrupted. I believe
Oh,
that the state, as a function, is basically the same as the mafia.
Why don't you join Black Lives Matter then? Are you a Black Lives Matter supporter? Because they believe exactly the same thing.
No, I don't. I don't believe in Black Lives Matter.
Well, why not?
As
They
an
have the same
organization
position.
because it's very clear that it was a fraud from the beginning.
Well, and also Black Lives Matter wants more government control, not less.
Ultimately, yes,
Yeah.
Adam,
But they-
which is right.
But they have the same position as far as the government.
Well, they have the same-
state is
they-
corrupt, and that the
Yeah,
police are
they have
not.
they have the same position, but they have this. They have a different goal that
A
they
different
want to
solution.
accomplish.
And I
And a
don't
different
believe
solution.
that the police are corrupt. I believe the police are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing as a function, which is acting as the mafia.
Right. Which, well, that is sort of the BLM position, except they think it's a race mafia as opposed to an
Yeah.
economic mafia. But
Yeah.
okay, so maybe I'm trying to figure out like how we can go in this conversation. Maybe we should say how, like, what do you want us to know? Because if the point of the conversation was you feel that we're straw manning the ANCAP position, like what? How should we go forward to not straw man the position? I guess, even if we disagree with it.
Well, Adam's going straight in on the state is necessary in order to have a free market.
Mhm.
That's insane. Because
But that's reality.
No,
though.
but wait,
free
wait,
markets
wait.
always precede the formation of
No, but wait,
large governments.
let's pause for a second. We're not going to agree, either of us, with your position. Okay.
I understand that.
Yeah, right. So I don't want to like argue.
But this
about
is why
who's
it's a
right.
debate.
Right. No, but I want you to set like explain the idea in a way so that we're not straw manning the position.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that at least when we talk about it, you're not like, even if we disagree with you when we talk about it, we're actually understand what the position is.
Okay. Well, one part of it is that market, the free market, it's an abstraction. It's just people living their lives, operating their businesses without undue interference.
Mhm.
Okay.
I agree.
I think I agree with that. Yeah.
And so the formation of larger states is always presents the creation of undue interference.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't minimize it. It often maximizes it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how am I going to get rid of the burglars? Well, I'm going to bring some burglars here and they're going to help me get rid of burglars.
Okay.
It's King Charles the Simple's solution to getting rid of the Danes.
It's or let's hire state pirates,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, okay, so how do you do you agree with kind of the Jordan Peterson concept that all hierarchies tend towards corruption and there has to be some kind of mechanism that prevents that?
Yes, I do agree with that, but I think that a market deals with this very effectively. That's,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, where do you guys think monopolies come from?
I know I understand that the argument because you're going to say that all monopolies and all the corruption of markets come from the government picking and choosing winners, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to just someone dominating the market naturally and then having an iron grip on it, basically.
Well, you say iron grip, but it's never an iron grip. You can't stay at the top of your game forever.
Well,
Sure
not
you can.
for, I mean, no one can stay at the top of anything forever, obviously.
Yeah.
But you can stay at the top for a very long time.
Yes. It's like Michael Jordan dominating a basketball.
Well, it's not really, because like he can't, like when a person's winning at a sport, like that doesn't translate at them winning at the sport forever. Like part of the issue is
No, but the same is true for success in a market. You're not going to succeed in the market forever.
no, but success. I think the issue with markets and economic stuff is that success breeds further economic success.
Well,
And
and
the more
This is
money
also
you
true in
have,
sports statistics.
no, but
Success begets success.
it only applies to the individual or the team. So, like, let me give you an example. Have you ever seen the show 6 Feet Under?
No, I actually haven't.
It's very dramatic. I wouldn't watch it unless you like sad stuff. But anyway, it's Dexter, the serial killer, and he runs this. They run a funeral home. It's like a family-owned funeral home, and there's a
Mhm.
whole arc where there's like a large business of funeral homes who has all this money, and they basically just convince people to cremate the bodies. And they just since they're like a big chain of these things, they just have so much more money. And they go to the family-owned funeral home, and they're like, "Oh, we want to buy you out." And they offer them a large sum of money. They refuse because, they're motivated by things other than money. They like doing what they're doing. And so the company has decided that they want this location. And so they say, okay, well, if you're not going to take our buyout, we're going to run you out of business. We're going to set up our funeral home right across the street from your funeral home. We're going to put giant billboards all throughout the city with our ads. We're going to offer our prices way less. We're going to strong arm the companies that you need for chemicals to do the bodies up and to keep them from degrading. We're going to basically say, hey, if you do business with Dexter's family, we're not going to buy your chemicals. And obviously they're going to go with, the giant chain, because the giant chain buys, the bulk of the chemicals. So it just seems like once you get you can't have monopolies that exist that are completely independent of government, that just once you get money, it's very
not
easy
occurred in
to push
history.
your way around.
It's just historically not occurred that coercive monopolies have existed without government interference. The most famous example
Mhm.
of a dominant monopoly where people try to claim that there hasn't been government interference is Rockefeller. I think can't remember, U.S. Oil, I think it's called. I can't remember the firm's name right now. Fuck. But Rockefeller had all these preferential state contracts going on, and it was just absolutely the case that his dominance in the market was the product of state preference, and it's the case with every coercive monopoly.
No, I mean you could be right.
You're giving a fictional example,
Yeah, but it's
but it just hasn't
based
happened in
in
history.
something. But no, but I'm sure that it's a fictional example just because it's a TV show. Like
but
I
it's
don't
the
follow,
logic is solid.
Yeah, like I don't follow companies. I'm
It
I'm
just
assuming
hasn't- it
things like that
hasn't
happens
happened.
every.
If something
every
hasn't
day.
happened, it hasn't happened for a reason.
Well, no, but what I was going to ask is, I would assume that if we were to look out through history and you look at all monopolies, there's going to always be government interference in them. But is that because government interference breeds monopolies, or because all economies have government involvement in them?
Are you saying that without government, monopolies won't exist? Is that the
Yes,
claim that you're
yes.
making?
They won't be.
Yeah.
They won't be coercive. They will.
They will be, though, because there'll be people giving businesses to their family members and just dominating a space. This is how.
And then if they do a shitty job, then they
But they'll
fail
be,
and lose out to competition.
Well, wait,
no one will be able to compete. They'll do the same thing as the Dexter thing. They'll put anybody who does
But that
competition
hasn't
out of
happened in
business.
history. That's fiction.
This happens all
No,
the
wait.
time in history.
That happens.
Captain
it
America
happens-
is not going to save the day or anything. That's fiction.
it happens all the time, but you're
Yes.
just saying it happens because of the government. And what I'm asking is, in order to make that claim, is there some example of or history of all these markets that were free of government influence that didn't have monopolies?
Well, yeah, but they would have been much like in terms of scale, it's not very comparable.
Right. Well, I think that's part of the problem.
Because as soon as a market produces enough wealth and plenty, it becomes target to exterior forces, which incentivizes the creation of government in some aspect.
Yeah, to create security.
Well,
or even to attack other people just to take their shit.
But that's part of the issue. You have to deal with that problem, and the way we deal with that problem is through government. Like if a company becomes big enough, like if we live in a system with no government, if a company becomes big enough, it becomes the government. Like, isn't that I mean, I'm not up on the history, but my understanding is that's basically how
that company.
No, but isn't that how all feudal lords in early governments started? You have someone that owns a bunch of land and it's very profitable, and then they become like the lord and the government of that territory.
It's called the stationary bandit.
Right.
Yes. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And feudalism gets a much rougher rap than it actually deserves.
Oh my God. We're at feudalism.
Yeah.
Would you want to make some sort of closing argument? I feel like we're kind of just going around in circles here. Do you have any? I don't want to cut you off if you're.
No. I don't want to straw man the ANCAP position.
I don't.
Is what I'm saying.
I mean, I feel like I have been. I don't feel like I have been straw manning the ANCAP position. I feel like I know it quite well. The ultimate goal is to get rid of government. There's a belief that government is coercive. I agree. Government is coercive. There are other coercions in the world that are worse than government. The ANCAPs, yes, they did. This is exactly what I'm saying. I'm not straw manning your position. The ANCAPs disagree. They think that the government is the ultimate form of coercion, and that without government, a market would flourish where everything could be privatized and there would be a lot less coercion in the world. I don't believe that exists.
Government or private law, things like that. These are all
yeah. Well, without, and I've said this many times when talking about the ANCAP position, without law enforcement, there is no law.
We are not opposed to no law enforcement.
Okay. Who's going to do that? Who's going to do that law enforcement?
We believe in private law.
Who is going to do the law enforcement? How is that? Who's
people you pay to do it?
Who is going to hire the cop? Who's going to regulate the cop?
Well, but that's the issue, is that the company is going to hire the cop, not the individual.
Right. Well, not even the company. Just you hire a cop. Things will get feudalistic. Let's be honest.
And that's good.
Being completely honest. Okay. Things will get feudalistic. Yeah, right. That's preferable.
What is? Listen, we have been covering the Ukraine story. We talked about a video that we watched where in Ukraine, their police force is corrupt. Their police force, basically, people become police officers so they can shake down citizens for bribes. You want to park your cart here and sell hot dogs? Well, you got to pay me. There's a city fine that I'm going to charge you right now on the spot. You give me $500 or I'm going to take your cart. That's how it works in Ukraine. That's you paying the police right there. That's your private enterprise set up for policing.
No, because there would be a competitor that you can pay to get your money back, or if they refuse to pay to remunerate you, they become an outlaw or they get killed.
What is going to incentivize the competitor to compete against him instead of just, hey, agreeing with the guy. You fine him $500 on Monday, and I'll get him $500 on Tuesday.
Well, this is where we can look at the Icelandic Commonwealth, because that's literally how it functioned. You had all these different lords of different regions that had the allegiance of people who said, oh, "Hey, I like this guy. I'm gonna side with him," or "I like this guy. I'm gonna side with him," and they protected each other.
Pretty soon you're building a government.
It is very mafia-like. It is very feudalistic. But this is our just recognitions of the essential nature of government.
Why do you think that's like having this mafia system
is better?
Is better than what we have now, I guess.
Because in times where power is divided internally in this way, where it's not centralized, it's more peaceful.
Our whole system is set up on decentralized power.
Wait. When you
not decentralized enough.
Well, not to this level. I mean, it's decentralized, but not to this level, obviously.
Not enough.
Right.
Yeah.
When you say peaceful, you mean like internally peaceful or externally peaceful?
What do you mean by externally peaceful?
Like peaceful, like we're not starting wars with other countries, or peaceful?
Well,
like there's peace within the society itself.
Peace, both technically.
Okay.
If we look at the Icelandic Commonwealth compared to England at the same time, or Denmark or Norway at the same time, this was the most peaceful nation.
Mm-hmm. How long was this Icelandic Commonwealth? Around
362 years,
okay.
From 900 to 1200.
I'll look into it because I'm interested. Because to me, it feels like if you're gonna have a system where basically it's a bunch of mafia dons running around, that feels like it's not gonna be peaceful. It feels like it's gonna be the opposite of peaceful, because essentially they are the law, and they're going to be fighting to expand their territory at all times. Yeah, where the government, you don't like, states, Florida and Georgia are not fighting each other over border disputes.
But they have the opportunity to expand their territory peacefully by saying, "Hey, you, Mr. Farmer, Snorri, I'm going to name you Snorri, stop allying with Olaf there, ally with me, and I'll charge you less taxes."
Right. So then that guy does that. So that farmer does that. So let's use it. Okay. So like in Georgia says, "Hey, farmers of Tallahassee, if you turn your lands over to be part of the state of Georgia, we'll tax you less, we'll incentivize you, blah, 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 blah." And so at first, the Florida mafia boss, tries to counteract the economic gains. But then you're going to have the exact situation you're having right now with Russia and Ukraine, where it's going to get to a point where the richer state is going to always be able to win that kind of soft power game. And so either the Florida mafia boss has to decide that he's going to just give up and allow himself to lose power, or he's going to come in with his privately owned militia and start fucking the place up. And they're going to go to war.
Yeah. He has the option to do it peacefully, but he also has the option to do it not peacefully.
Okay, but that's why I'm saying that doesn't.
That's the case of the status quo in terms of different nation states now. This is kind of.
But we're talking internally, though.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. I don't want to bring that conflict that happens between nation states to be intranation.
I would like it. That sounds way better.
Okay. I guess I just disagree fundamentally.
Political relations intranation are way nicer than internally.
Hey, before we go, I want to ask you, how do you feel about democracy? I'm just curious.
I'm opposed to it. Absolutely.
Because I have this theory that people who have these really fringe political beliefs hate democracy because they know they could never get a majority of people to buy into what they're selling. So
that is
he said
certainly an incentive.
Right.
But part of it is also that the incentives for voting and political representation through that way are perverse, because you don't experience the costs of your decisions. It becomes alienated to you, unless it's really catastrophic, like the Biden administration.
So when you say you don't like democracy, I guess I'm confused, because I thought you were advocating for like a stricter one-for-one voting almost democracy, just not elected democracy.
Democracy is majority rule. Right. I don't like majority rule. I don't think the majority should be able to inflict their will onto the minority.
Okay, but isn't the system you're sort of advocating for just the reverse of that? The minority inflicts their will on the majority?
That's politics in general. The minority always inflicts their will on the majority.
I thought you said democracy was the opposite.
Democracy aims to be the opposite, and I
Okay.
disagree with it. But the idea that we should have a system like democracy in its most ideal form, it's not preferable. It's
I see.
basically
That's
mob
actually
rule.
right. Yeah. So even if democracy didn't have lobbyists and elites controlling everything, you still would be opposed to the fundamental idea.
Yes.
Okay. So, but all right. But so you want a system now where the minority is controlling the majority.
Well, I just want to change who the minority are.
Okay.
We want different elites.
Right. So okay.
There's
So
always,
what are the elites
there's
that
always
you
going to be
want?
elites,
Mhm.
but to change the system changes who become the elites and how the
Right,
elites are
right.
selected.
So how do you want the elites to be selected via economic?
Yeah. Through
Factors?
satisfying consumer preferences.
Okay.
That's
Where-
how they're selected now, but
No, it's not. We
I
don't
mean-
we don't live in a free market.
I mean, I
We
think
live
we
in
do.
a
Mhm.
we lived in a free-ish market, but now the asset sheets of central banks outpace GDP in a lot of cases. It's really crazy.
let's not go there. But
Right. Well, I don't know. It seems like, and this is what I never understood with this argument. And Aiden was kind of making, and Spoon were kind of making similar arguments. It just seems like that if the system that you're kind of setting up, it seems like there's going to be way like the business owner, the Don boss that owns, my state of Florida, I feel like is going to be way less caring about what my fucking individual opinion is over, Ron DeSantis.
But
be
then you
voted out
can
of
just
office.
hire someone else and leave.
you can't.
And you don't have to give up your land when you leave.
Well, no,
Oh.
wait. I don't have to. So
How
you're
do you
saying that
hire
like I could
somebody
have
else?
a plot of land in Florida that I just declare as part of the state of California?
Yes, and people from California would come protect it
I don't think that's
What incentivizes
feasible
them to come
at all.
protect it?
because otherwise
You
leave.
paying?
Yeah, you paying it, and
Yeah, but-
otherwise you leave.
But then,
But this is
you get into a lot.
America's too big for this. It,
Mhm.
it would have to be smaller states, but
Right. Well, but
and
I mean-
eventually it does become an aristocracy. There's always going to be aristocracies, and even in the Icelandic Commonwealth, there's like 12 families that controlled all the governments.
Mhm.
So you're saying power is going to centralize, just in a different
It's-
way.
Yeah,
The
because it
whole
always
point
does.
of our system is to prevent power from centralizing.
And it has failed. It has demonstrably extremely failed.
Well, I think it's a huge success, but
I mean, a success more than we've had, and I think more than what the system you're advocating for is.
yeah,
Uh,
much more than the system you're advocating for. Well, hey, Sitch, I
mean-
sent you a link. Let's read the Quora thing and we'll wrap up. I don't want to
Okay.
cut you off, obviously, if you have. It's
Right, and that's
is
fine.
is the claim that medieval Iceland was a functional ANCAP society true? So obviously this is something,
Okay, this is a random thing. I don't know if this is true.
but
You
let's
want me to
just
read the
read it
first
just because it's
answer,
funny.
or-
Yeah, the first answer, Lionel.
Here is how Icelandic society worked. Is that what you're referring to?
No,
Or you're
I was
referring
like
to
define
no,
functional.
Define functional. Oh, okay. There's a bunch of answers here. Define functional. The first few decades were like the gold rush. Everyone tries to grab some land and murders each other to get to the top. After a while, laws and courts are established, but without much means to implement said laws, local chieftains, re mafia bosses, or the big guys and the power players inherent to this kind of very limited government leads to much eternal strife. In the 12th and 13th centuries, the power balance shifts and fewer chieftains hound more and more political influence. The result is a bloody civil war in which few are safe and casualties are rather high. In the end, weakened by infighting, Icelanders have to accept the overlordship of the Norwegian king, who had the advantage of an actual government and relative political stability, most of the time, kind of at least more than in Iceland. In the end, Iceland's rather odd system of government in which big guys take power solely based on their will. Power is pretty much what happens when there's no government or less government to be had. That's where militias, mafias, and warlords originate. Yet in the end, the absence of centralized government meant a weakening of the country in relation to its stronger neighbors. Deep down, Iceland only managed to be that, quote, successful to start because of its extreme remoteness. Nothing of that sort could have worked, even the short term in continental Europe, because of the more dynamic powers of local players. So in the end, yes, Iceland was sort of a mafia-like capitalistic parentheses, is free trade really free when the mafia takes a cut of your profits and trading opportunities remain rather limited? Largely government-free society for a few centuries, but this is also what led to its internal weakening and absorption by a larger power.
You call this success or not? It's your call. So
It's
yeah,
after 360 years. I think if you
Mhm.
last longer than the average, it's a success.
right.
Maybe.
But this doesn't
Maybe.
sound like
Yeah.
utopia to me by any
Well,
means.
it sounds
take
also
that.
like
I said at the start, I don't believe in utopia.
Right, right. It doesn't sound better than our current system. I guess.
Well,
Yes.
you have to
Uh,
compare like to like. So you don't compare the Icelandic Commonwealth's
Mhm.
quality of life to present day. You compare it to similar areas at similar time. So
Right, I understand that. Yeah, and
Denmark or
I don't
England.
know enough about the history to make that comparison.
So in this situation where you're paying for security from the mafia boss instead of paying Uncle Sam
security
in
from the police.
taxes, yes.
Right.
So they go through this in my favorite book that I always mention, The Dictator's Handbook, and they actually figure out how much people pay in autocracies in taxes. They don't always tax them in the same way they do in the
Okay.
United States in an
This is
IRS.
definitionally not an
No, hey, let
autocracy
me
yet.
finish. Let me finish here. So in this situation that you're setting up, the taxes usually end up being 90%. The person actually lives off 10% of what their income is. So in America,
this is
I know
not-
you're
this is
complaining
not what
about
happened.
30% taxes, but
And this is not an autocracy.
it's 3 times the taxes over in when you're paying the mafia boss to protect you.
But this is not an autocracy. And
What is it?
How is this not an autocracy?
autocracy is where power is centralized into one person.
That
where
is
all
the
the keys of
person.
power are held by a
All the
single
keys
person.
of power will be held by the person who wins
But it's
the
not held by
force game.
in the
There is
Icelandic
go-
Commonwealth. It's not held by one person.
there is going to
wait. This is wait. So I think the distinction here is like the country of Iceland
Mhm.
is not held. The power isn't held by one person, but like each region has its local mafia boss who has kind of authoritarian control over
Sure,
the region
yes.
that they control.
But they
right?
don't get to determine if you're going to stay in that regional control.
Yeah, but
they
any-
kinda
They don't
do,
have the keys
though.
of power. The keys
Any
of power is held by
region
the
you
property
move
holder.
to, though, will be held by a different mafia boss.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
well, let me go back because this goes back to kind of the Florida California example. This is where I don't think this would work because like if I say, listen, Florida mafia boss, I don't like how you're taxing me. I'm ceding my property. I'm not moving, but I'm ceding my property to be under the dominance and control of the California mafia boss. And they're going to send troops to defend my home, assuming I have enough money that would make this even worthwhile.
They're not
which is
going
a
to
big
do that. They're going to
assumption.
say,
right.
Florida,
Well, no, but-
California is kind of an extreme example. It would probably be one of the states you're bordered
Well,
with.
okay, so even if it's Georgia, all right. You
Yeah,
know, I
but
live in
but
South Florida.
it's
It's very
still
far
more
away,
alienated.
right? From Georgia. And to me, it doesn't seem feasible that Georgia would have the ability to like send troops in all the way to protect my fucking dumbass in Florida because they'd have to fight the entire Florida military, which is right physically there, and they
Yes.
they don't even have to establish supply lines; they're just there.
the-
I mean, I think that's why I think reality has a bias towards efficiency to some extent, and
Big
I think
time.
this is why we're seeing why through all of human history, tribes and cultures and governments establish these country borders based on locality because that's just kind of the way it works. I don't know if we can have a system where like you can just declare part of different government without actually physically being in proximity to them.
Most borders are arbitrarily defined. Let's be clear on this.
Well, I don't like the word arbitrary, but
Yeah, what,
It's
what
arbitrarily
happens
as in
with the
determined by someone who has their will, an arbiter who
Right,
set where the
less-
border is.
okay, sure. Well, also just geological characteristics and
That's-
shit like that. But
In America, it's not geological characteristics. In Africa, it's not geological characteristics. It's not even local.
it's
cultural
people killing each other,
characteristics.
right?
Yeah, or
I'm a-
it's the
a monopoly
it-
on
it
force,
was
though,
all-
is going to form no matter what. It's going to be a private hands monopoly on force, or it's going to be a publicly held monopoly on force.
if we consider the end of the Icelandic Commonwealth to be the establishment of a monopoly on force, then I am forced to agree with you. But
Well,
I-
that's going to happen. Like this
Well, no,
happens already in drug. I mean, in the illegal drug trade, the gangs carve up areas and say, "This is my area. This is your area." You know, you manage your area, I'll manage my area. But those gangs have a monopoly on force in those areas.
In the case of the Icelandic Commonwealth, the common person was armed, so there wasn't a monopoly on force.
Well,
and
in inner
Well, in
city
America,
gangs,
the individual person is armed too. I
the
mean,
individual person
Not-
is armed.
not
It
near-
doesn't
not to
make
this
any
level.
difference.
yeah, but even if it was, I mean, it doesn't. Like, if I want to cede my property to Georgia, I mean, I can't fight the entire Florida, military myself.
Yeah, and if you want
You
the
won't necessarily-
gangs to get out of your neighborhood in the
If you're-
inner
if you're
city, they're
talking
going to say
about-
"fuck off."
to appeal to
It's
your
our
own
city.
argument about nature erring towards efficiency, you wouldn't have to fight the entire military.
Why? What would I
It
have
would-
to fight?
You probably wouldn't have to fight anyone. It would just be a trade deal or some shit.
Yeah, but what if there are terms that? What if I want to cede my property to Georgia, and they're just, for whatever reason, the terms that the Florida government wants from me, I can't provide, and so they say, "Well, tough luck, you can't do it. You don't have enough money to pay us off to allow us to do this." Or they just say, "Fuck you, we want to keep our land contiguous. We don't want a bunch of, we don't want to have a Swiss cheese state.
Yeah.
Well, that would be the state trying to assert that the entire system needs to end, and that's
Don't they have the power?
if
Can't
either
they
the
end the
system
system?
ends or it doesn't end.
Yeah, but who? I guess that's where I'm having trouble understanding this. Is I don't see who.
All these things, everything,
I don't see who's gonna
every
enforce
form
the
of government is
system.
going to be temporary. There's never going to be a permanent.
Well, life is. I mean, life is temporary. In 10 million years, the sun's gonna burn out. So I mean, I don't. Like, I don't know what that has to do with what we're talking
Well,
about.
you're talking about what would basically be the end of that form of government.
He's basically
Okay, I understand.
he's
what you're saying.
basically saying,
I
hey,
see.
the ANCAP government is going to fall apart sooner or later, Sitch, but all
I mean,
governments fall apart
it just
sooner or
to,
later.
to me,
If it lasts longer than the average, I'm
Right.
calling it a success.
yeah, but I don't. To me, I feel like part of the reason that we have the system of governance we have now is because we've gone through all these iterations that
Totally.
you're talking about.
Yes.
I think what you're talking
Yeah.
about is sort of the natural inclination of how a power ends up conglomerating, and it doesn't work, or a better system comes and replaces it.
I do not believe that this is a better system.
Okay,
See-
I know
see,
you
That
don't.
we live in
I
now
know
Right.
is
you
not a better system.
Right, I understand.
How do you
In our lifetime, this system has gotten worse.
Mecca, how do you know that this isn't just your moral intuitions driving the ship here, telling you my moral
I
intuitions
absolutely-
tell me this system is terrible. My moral intuitions tell me paying taxes is wrong. My moral intuitions tell me this other system would be better.
The same way that you say that it's the same. It's the same for you, Adam.
No, it's not.
It's all we got.
I
here.
hate I hate paying taxes. I have the same moral intuitions as you is about having to get permits to fucking do anything. I hate government. I hate all the hoops that you have to jump through. But I am
know
not but
We
my
know that
elephant
permits
is
are not
but my
good.
elephant isn't rampaging every time I have to pay my taxes because I have studied enough to know that the alternatives are terrible. I've read
I
I
just
don't
things
want
you
to
haven't,
pay
buddy.
I don't want to pay 90% in taxes to some Putin-esque oligarch.
In the Icelandic Commonwealth,
Mhm.
taxes were lower than they are now.
All
In
right.
feudalism, taxes were
We're
lower
going to
than
read
they
about
are
this
now.
Icelandic.
Feu-
Was there
feu-
like a book? you should read about
feudalism-
this Icelandic
Feudalism had
comic book?
lower taxes. They actually cover feudalism in Dictator's Handbook. I know that you're wrong there.
Well, no, but is there like a book or something? What should we read to learn about the Icelandic Commonwealth?
There's a few different histories of the Icelandic Commonwealth. Some of the histories were written contemporaneously. Snorri Snorson is
Snore
something-
Snorson?
I know they had silly names.
Uh-huh.
They had, oh shit!
But anyway,
I don't know why that TV did that.
So I don't want CT in the chat is saying, Adam, don't break the guest. I hope I haven't been too rude, Mecca. Do you want to give us like a closing statement or?
No, I think I've said my case. I think I've
Mhm.
I've defended myself,
Yeah, I mean,
to the extent
it's,
that I can.
it's an interesting conversation.
And I enjoyed talking to you guys. This was
yeah, I
great.
enjoyed having you.
Have we moved you at all? Have we given you some food for thought? Maybe.
No,
Absolutely not.
Wow.
Adam.
thank you. Good. I'm glad. Cyborg for $20 says, please. He does not like you. He says, please stop this guy. He is strawmanning ANCAPs more than you guys ever could. ANCAPs don't want what this guy is saying. They want to reduce the threat of violence in society, mostly boiling down to what the government does.
This is another thing. All ANCAPs disagree with each other.
Mhm.
As they should, right? Isn't that part of the course?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, cool.
This guy who's disagreeing with me needs to read more David Friedman.
Read more Friedman, Cyborg.
David Friedman,
David
Yeah.
Friedman.
not Milton Friedman.
Fuck
He's
Milton
the
Friedman.
comedian, right? David Friedman.
Icelandic Commonwealth.
Do you want to say
Okay.
anything before we see Mecca out, Sitch?
I mean, I don't.
Well,
But
thanks for joining
we should
us.
do more. I like this. We should do more of these conversations.
We're gonna do one. I think CT is gonna line up more of these talks
Awesome.
for us. So, but thanks for being our inaugural talk, Mecca. This was fun.
That's right.
Oh yeah, this was nerve wracking. Thanks, guys.
Well,
Do you
we're-
have a channel or anything? Wanna
I do,
promote?
but I haven't uploaded anything on it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
so
But you know, don't
Go
worry
ahead.
about it.
no, you go ahead. Okay,
No,
so
no, I'm
we'll,
just saying, don't worry about it. You don't need to show anything for me
Okay. We'll wait for you to upload videos and then we'll show.
we'll be around.
if I ever do that.
Yes.
If you ever do that, you'll get your own $500 bet hopefully from someone to upload
All right.
content.
Thanks, guys. I'm gonna click leave now.
Okay,
Okay. See you later.
take care. Yeah. So, are we clear to clip that out and put on the channel? Like that's
Yeah, that was a
okay.
cool. That was an
Yeah, I
interesting
thought it was
conversation.
interesting, and
Let's
we
do it.
learned a lot. That's why I was like, if we throw in but you need to work on. You have this
Me.
way.
Yeah.
You have this way of reading when you're
Very
just
quickly.
yeah. Well, but it's not
It's very
really.
long. I
You're not
don't
reading
care.
for the audience. You're
I know.
reading. You're like mumbling.
I'm
under
just
your
trying to get
breath,
through it.
So
I don't want to read the
understand.
whole thing. Well, listen.
Well,
I
you
don't
didn't
think
have
it's-
to read the whole thing.
Well, no, I don't think it's fair to
Mhm.
Mech to be like, oh, you're making claims and I'm gonna read a core post that like debunks you. Cause like, I mean, I don't fucking know.
Well, that's fine. Make
How
sure,
do I know that the core post is right?
make sure you include this CT when you clip it out because I want people to know that. So
Right.
this is obviously a work in progress. So I agree. I don't want to be unfair with people, but I kind of come on. This is a this is a
Come on, Sitch. We're in a debate here. You gotta bone him.
well, no, I'm just saying it's not like he wasn't here to respond to what you read.
I understand.
So I don't feel like it was unfair, but I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
it's funny.
Listen.
I started
when I read-
I started
Mhm.
typing into Google and I typed in Iceland, whatever,
Right.
and,
right.
and immediately ANCAP popped up on the end of it, and I was like, okay,
Right. I'm sure this is. I forget the Voshes and the commies. They always cite some like specific example of
that they've all
co-ops
gone to
working.
over. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I forget what there's some country that they always cite.
Yes.
Beyond
Yeah.
Dragoon. So I'm sure that the Icelandic Commonwealth is like the example for the ANCAPs that they always point to.
the regular thing. Okay.
Right. So
Well, end of segment.
there you go. Drew.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.